Welcome to Conversations with Laurel, everyone. I am your host, Laurel McHargue, and I have an incredible visitor with me today. His name is Paul Martz. Paul, welcome to Conversations with Laurel.
Laurel, thank you so much for having me as your guest.
You're so very welcome. We've been trying to do this for quite a while now. Let me just give listeners out there a little bit of a bio. Okay, you are a science fiction author, a technology blogger, and former punk rock drummer. I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit. Your short fiction appears online and in multiple anthologies. I have read a lot of it, and your nonfiction includes, according to you, some really boring programming books. We're not going to talk about those today.
Good, thank you.
But I mean, unless you want to, this is your time. But no, we won't talk about that. Paul, I met you at a Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference, I think a few years ago.
That's right.
And then I interviewed you and Linda Ditchkiss, who happens to be the president of the Central Colorado Writers here. And you two were editing the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Anthology that year called Without Breaks, Fingers Crossed. So before we get into any of your writing, tell me about your punk rock drummer days and why you try to avoid reliving them.
Because it's not what did you do yesterday, it's what have you done for me right now, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my deep dark past. Hedonistic, fun, very creative. That's the thing that I probably enjoyed most about my time in the 80s as a drummer in the Detroit and Ann Arbor underground music bar band scene was that I was immersed in this community of very creative, intelligent individuals who were all not afraid to stand up there on stage and put themselves out there. It was a very vibrant and exciting time, and it was a great way for me to spend my early 20s. And no one got hurt. Um,
Ah,
but I do have a little bit of hearing loss to show for it, unfortunately.
okay. Don't we all? I have
Yep.
hearing aids. So you talk about hearing loss. Listeners out there and viewers, for those of you who don't know, Paul is blind. Would you be comfortable talking about how that happened to you?
Sure, yeah. The hearing loss is a problem, but the vision loss is the much bigger problem, really. As a child, I was diagnosed with a progressive retina degeneration disorder called retinitis pigmentosa, for which there was no cure, and still to this day there is no cure. So it was kind of a surprise to get that diagnosis because I thought I could see just fine. I was a little clumsy and I avoided sports. So what? As it turns out, it's an inherited disorder and it runs in my family. My mother was blind, my grandfather was blind. It goes back generations. Slowly, over the course of my life, I lost my eyesight to the point where 10 years ago, I began to identify as a totally blind individual. I became functionally blind. I still see light coming in through the window a little bit, but you wouldn't want me driving a car and sharing a road with you.
Yeah.
So I walk with a cane. And when I use a computer to read a manuscript or edit it or provide critique feedback, I use something called screen reading software.
Okay.
There's also a device called a refreshable Braille display that connects with Bluetooth and it dynamically raises and lowers Braille dots to allow me to read text a line at a time if I needed to check things like exact capitalization, spelling, punctuation, that kind of thing. I would refer to a Braille display for that. So really, we live in an amazing time that makes being blind not just possible, but really, it makes it possible for me to live a very full life, and writing fits very well with the tools that I have available to me.
That is wonderful, wonderful to hear. So you learn Braille as a youngster? When did you start to learn Braille?
I did not. I waited until kind of I saw the unavoidable conclusion looming
Yeah.
in me in my face, right? So it
Yeah.
was about 2013, 2014 was when I started picking up screen reader technology and learning Braille. And you don't learn Braille overnight. It is not,
No.
oh, here's the Braille alphabet card. That's easy, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to Braille. It's a lot more like shorthand, actually. A lot of people are surprised to know this. There are special codes that stand for groups of letters, like the
Okay.
suffix LESS or the suffix MENT, or standalone words like the has their own special symbol.
Okay.
And it takes quite a long time to learn it and master it. And I've actually don't use it regularly enough as I should because it's so time consuming. As a result, I've forgotten how to write it. So I can read it, I just can't write it.
Okay. And again,
Yep.
learning any foreign language, and that's a foreign language, right? As
Yes.
in our more mature years, is definitely more difficult. So, wow, kudos to you.
Hmm.
How did you feel when you realized that you were losing your vision?
Well, the thing that saved me really was that so many of my family members had lost their eyesight and still managed to live full lives. I was raised in this environment where my blind relatives would come to the family reunions and, oh, here's my blind cousin, Paul. I want you to meet my blind cousin. And here's my blind aunt. And so it was just normal. Oh, okay, there's all these people with vision loss. And guess what? They still
Ah,
get out of their house and they go to the family reunions and they talk and they carry on conversations and they lead a normal life. My grandfather was probably my greatest inspiration. He ran a farm by
wow.
himself. And I remember him getting up each morning and I would follow him out to the barn. He knew exactly where he was going and he would milk the three cows and he'd walk home with two buckets of milk, one in each hand, and he'd go right to the farmhouse. And it's because, once you know the landscape, you don't really need the eyesight so much. And that's
Wow.
one of many tricks you learn as you lose your eyesight. Um,
Okay. Wow. Oh my gosh, patterns. Yeah. So you have recently published a book called Solve It,
hmm.
and it's about solving a Rubik's Cube. It's an aid for blind people to be able to solve a Rubik's Cube. Why? Why did you do this?
I think I might even have one here. So, yes, I do. So,
Aha! I
yes,
see that that is already solved.
so that's a Rubik's Cube. And if you'll notice, it has tactile markings on it so that
Yep.
I can, instead of looking at the colors, I can feel the textures and I can match those textures to solve the cube. Yes.
Okay.
So,
So,
yeah, so let me
yeah,
tell you about that.
yeah. Tell us about that because this is fascinating.
The
Yeah.
Rubik's Cube came out in 1980, and I was 17 and had all of my eyesight. So I just solved it sighted like any other kid, right?
Okay.
Learned how to solve it and have been solving it ever since.
Okay.
As my eyesight got worse, I realized I needed to find another way to solve a cube. And I started looking around and I discovered that there were tactile cubes. You could buy them or you could make them yourselves by applying your own textures. But I was a little rusty at the time, so I did some web searches to find out, to refresh my memory.
Yeah.
And a lot of the web resources were designed for visual readers. They didn't work well with my screen reader software or my Braille display because they contained images and pictures and they contained mouse-only controls and they were
Ah.
littered up with all sorts of advertisements that are difficult to navigate past. So I started to make my own text-only notes that I knew would work well with my screen reader. And those
Okay.
notes grew and turned into Solve It, the only speed solving guide for blind cubers, which I published last May. And it's written entirely for a 100% blind audience.
Okay. All right. And I'll have a link to that below. The idea is amazing. So, what are some publishing considerations for the blind, and because this can't be easy to do. I mean, nothing can be easy, but what did you have to, how did you do this?
It's tricky. I spoke with a couple publishers about my plan for this book, and they said, well, we want to do illustrations. Because if you're publishing a Rubik's Cube solution, of course you want to do illustrations. They all have illustrations. And I said, no, no, we're not
No.
doing illustrations. And so I ended up not working with any publishers. I self-published it. It's 100% text only, and every move that a reader needs to make is described using 100% text. Now, Rubik's Cube solutions usually consist of a sequence of turns. You need to turn the right side clockwise, the top counterclockwise, blah, 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 maybe 8 or 9 steps. And they've developed their own special notation for that. I wanted to make sure that that notation would work with a Braille display and a screen reader. So I chose the characters in that notation very carefully so that it would work. Um, there was a mistake that okay, so how does a
Uh-oh.
blind
Uh-oh.
person actually read this book
Right.
anyway? You
Yeah.
might
Right.
that
Right.
might be the question everyone wants
Okay.
answered. They're going to open up an EPUB on their computer or their smartphone and use a screen reader or a Braille display to read it a paragraph at a time. The nice thing about that technology is when they get to those complex sets of instructions and they really need to slow down, then they can proceed a word at a time or a sentence at a time or jump back and listen to that previous sentence if they need to. That's not something you can do easily in an audiobook. The controls in an audiobook are not granular enough to make it easy to read a detailed set of instructions like this. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I went with EPUB. There was, however, one mistake that I made. The
Uh-oh.
primary source of books for blind readers is a Library of Congress National Library Service sub-organization called BARD, and that's Braille and Audio Reading Download. And in order to get into BARD, you need to have a Library of Congress control number.
Right.
So publishers do that by rote for every book
Hmm.
that they put out.
Hmm.
Self-publishers often skip that step because they don't know about it, and I didn't. So my
Oh.
book does not have a Library of Congress control number, and it is not available through BARD, unfortunately, which is the major source of books for blind readers. It is available for free from Bookshare, which is another popular source for blind readers, and it's very easy for anyone self-publishing to upload their EPUB or their Microsoft Word file to Bookshare and simply donate it to that organization, and that becomes free to a lot of blind readers.
Okay. It's not too late. I mean, I don't believe it's too late to get a Library of Congress control number for something that you've published. You might need to unpublish it first. Um, I've done it for my books, and it's a little bit of a process, but I think you could still do it.
I, I'm struggling with that. I'll talk to you
Oh,
offline.
okay. Okay. All right. All right. Um, Again, that's fascinating. I have never solved a Rubik's Cube. I wouldn't know where to start. And so I don't know. I kind of feel like I need to get one now and try to figure it out. Could a sighted person use your instructions to solve a Rubik's Cube? Would it be helpful?
Probably. How much time do you have, and how much of your life are you willing to set aside? Um, Honestly, Laurel, um, I spent so much time going to competitive Rubik's Cube speed solving events, networking with other cubers, asking them questions, looking for the right way to create Rubik's Cubes. It was very, very consuming project that took me a lot of time. And now I just kind of want to get back to my science fiction and 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 I'll pick up a Rubik's Cube and I'll say, oh my goodness, it's been a couple of weeks since I solved this. I wonder if I still remember how. So it takes, like we were talking about with a foreign language, you
Yeah.
use it or you lose it. And
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
same way with Rubik's Cubes. You're going to spend a lot of time memorizing it, and then you need to spend a lot of time going over that and practicing it every day.
All right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can do it, Laurel.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
I think maybe I'll put that at the bottom of my to-do list, along with still working on Morse code and relearning French and and my story. So let's talk about writing, okay? You have some pending short stories and some recently published short stories. We're going to talk about some of those, but you don't write novels. Why don't you write novels?
Oh boy, when I retired 10 years ago and decided I wanted to write fiction as my second career, I came in with the idea that I was going to write a novel. And
Okay.
I think most people do. And so I did a NaNoWriMo and I created an enormous amount of editing work for myself. So I said, what I really need to do first is learn how to write. And short form fiction is a small investment and a fast turnaround. And you can also experiment. The cost for experimentation is very low. So I started writing short fiction and I've just never stopped. And I don't know if I'll ever write a novel, quite honestly.
Okay, that's a great answer. I don't know that I have any novels left in me either. I think I might switch to more and more memoir, more essay kind of things, which I love to write as well. And again, those are relatively short investments of time to do something like that. So t tell me how you got into the NYC Midnight challenges.
I'm going to credit you with that, Laurel.
Oh,
You led a flash fiction workshop at an RMFW conference a while ago, and I attended. Having written flash fiction and drabbles myself, I already thought I was an expert. But you mentioned NYC Midnight, and that was the first time that I had ever heard about it. So I signed up for their newsletter, and I've been following it. And finally, I decided I was going to enter the short story challenge, which you and I both entered and we're now waiting for results for
yeah.
round one to see how
Mhm.
we did. I've
Yes.
also signed up for the 100 word microfiction challenge, which is coming up in March 20th. I think we get the prompt, and then
Yes.
we have all day the 21st to write our 100 word story.
100 words, piece of cake, right? To do a whole story. And for those of you who aren't familiar with NYCMidnight.com, those challenges, New York City, at midnight in New York City on a Friday night, if you sign up for these challenges, they send you a prompt that has a genre. It always has a genre. And then it will have two other items. It might have an item that you need to include in your story, a location, or a specific character. It's three items they give you. And depending on whether it's a microfiction 100-word contest where they give you a day to do it, or the short story contest where they give you a week to do it, you have that much time to create a story with those conditions. And then you wait, as Paul just mentioned, to get feedback. And you get feedback from three independent readers, and they provide what they think you did well and really detailed feedback on these. And then they provide what they felt you could do better with. And sometimes, I don't know how you feel about it, Paul, but sometimes their suggestions for how they think you could do better just couldn't possibly fit in the constraints of the word limit that they give you. So,
Well,
but the thing is, you can then, you know, edit your work and publish it however you want, which I think is wonderful.
well, this is my first time in the short story challenge, so I haven't seen their feedback yet. But yeah, I could see that tendency, especially for the 100 word
Yes.
microfiction challenge. You could have done this, you could have done that, and it's like in 100 words, really?
Right, right. And kind of like, and for writers out there, you know this, when you have to create a synopsis for something longer, it's difficult because if you've written a novel of 80,000 words and you need a synopsis of one page, how do you even do that? So, microfiction, flash fiction, short fiction, you have to provide everything that someone would expect in a longer work in such a short amount of time. I guess in a way like poetry, right? You want to express something big with very few words. So it's a great
Well,
challenge.
so I don't know what you're doing, and I would love to hear it, but I am already training for the 100 word microfiction challenge. And after the 21st is over, I'm immediately going to start training for round two of the short story challenge, where they only give us 3 days to write a short story. So it's prep. Once that prompt lands, I want to be able to know what I'm doing and hit the ground running.
Well, okay, so you're saying that you're practicing for it. Tell me how you're practicing for it because we don't know what genre we're going to get, what location possibly, what character. How do you train to do something like this?
Well, I generate random prompts and I use, and this is kind of a bad word in the writing community, I use generative AI.
Okay.
I'm using
It can be
ChatGPT to
it can be a
generate
good
a
thing.
prompt in the style of these contests. And ChatGPT is able to go out there and see what kind of prompts have been generated in the past. So I'll get a random genre, a random action, and a random word. And then I will time myself to see how long it takes me to come up with a framework for that story, how long it takes me to get a rough draft, how long before I've got it down to 100 words. And then if I want to, I can actually feed that back into ChatGPT. And I know, again, this is a tender, a subject I have to kind of tiptoe around. But yeah,
Yeah.
I upload my story back to ChatGPT and I say, how would an NYC Midnight judge grade this story?
Wow. Oh, wow. I never would have thought to do that.
It's quite a powerful tool. You just have to be able to get past that notion that generative AI is only there to copy our work and render us moot. And once you're past that and you start using that tool, it's actually quite powerful. Of course, you cannot use generative AI during the contest at all. So, but there's no reason why you can't use it to help you train and practice.
And this, of course, leads me to wonder how these judges can determine that. Because again, we're this is an honor code kind of thing, right?
Exactly. And I think what they're really trying to do is stop people from sitting down, pushing a button, and submitting whatever pops up and is generated. But I imagine that if you wanted to use generative AI to rewrite a sentence or find a synonym, it would be almost impossible for anyone to detect that.
Yeah.
But you didn't hear me say that.
No, no, neither did the world. No.
Okay.
La 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 la. So, well, I'm delighted that you're doing that. And I love these contests because again, they make my brain go to places it never would have gone on its own, I don't think. I mean, I dream crazy dreams, but yeah, and generally speaking, when I get the prompt, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to do uh, whatever it is the prompt might be, and because I'm not comfortable with it or I don't know enough about it. But then once I make myself do a little research, about what types of things are in different genres, which is I think great for writers to do, then you just kind of immerse yourself. And I always eliminate the first idea that comes to my mind because I feel like if something came to my mind easily, it might come to other people's minds easily as well. And so, then it's a matter of, well, how would I make this different? How could I look at this in a way that normal people wouldn't?
I remember that from your workshop that I attended. Ignore the first idea. You're totally right. It's going to be lame. There's something better hiding under there waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, yeah. So it's fun. It always ends up being really fun. And like I said, the feedback is wonderful. There's a slight charge for it, anywhere from I think 29 to maybe $49, depending on the length of the challenge. But yeah, I'll have a link to NYC Midnight below for those of you who are looking to really challenge your brain in non-Rubik's Cube ways.
And and I'll say something else about it. Sometimes as writers, we tend to sit around and wait for inspiration to strike.
Yeah.
But writing doesn't happen when you're inspired. It happens when you show up. And the thing that makes you show up is a tight deadline. like this
Yeah.
contest. So
Yes.
this gets me energized, not just to participate in the contest, but to actually practice in advance. And some of the stuff that I've been writing while I've been practicing has potential to get published. I'm very excited about a mystery that I wrote involving an art student who has been archiving her favorite professor's paintings and comes across one painting that doesn't look like his work, but it's got his signature, and the mystery thickens from there. And that was something that I wrote to a randomly generated practice prompt. So,
Wow. All right. Well, you got me inspired now to start doing that too. So your pieces, you've got one called More Than Electric Sheep, which you
hmm
sent me. It took first place in the Uncharted Magazine AI Flash Challenge in 2023. So you've been writing short fiction for a while. It's
right.
available free, and I'll have a post to a link to that post online.
Thank you.
Um, and also the offering
hmm
took first place in the Reader's Choice Drabble Award, which I haven't heard of. I'm going to have to look that up. And it's pending publication in specficwriters.com. It's a retelling of the Andromeda myth. And it's 100 word, it's one of these micro fiction stories, the offering. Would you read that for us?
I'd love to. And I'll tell you, the Reader's Choice Drabble Award was
Yeah.
something that we did within our own critique group, Speculative Fiction Writers.
Okay.
You can find that critique group at specficwriters.com, and
Okay.
that's where the story is going to be published. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
So
I would love to hear this.
I'm going to read it, and I'll tell you how I'm going to read it. I'm
Okay.
going to use my phone, the screen reader on my cell phone, as a prompter. And in order to do that, I need to put on my Bluetooth sunglasses so that I can hear my phone talk. All right.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Now if this works, it'll be a miracle.
It'll work.
And no, it didn't.
Oh
Okay.
no.
So we're going to back out to my backup plan because when you're blind, you always have plan B.
Okay.
All right. The offering, a retelling of the Andromeda myth, the offering. The tide withdrew, revealing her chains. Tourists called it art. Iron bolts sunk deep in stone, crusted and barnacled by centuries long forgotten. But something vast still churned beneath the waves. On the moonlit shore, the promised bride stirs, sleepless and fevered, hearing within her marrow a summons from the depths. Terror and yearning intertwined until surrender becomes her only prayer. There is no Perseus to save her. There never was. Only the troubled waves and the thing that waits below. At dawn, the rock lies barren, and the sand bears the scars of chains dragged into the soundless deep.
Oh, the Andromeda tale. Yeah. Tell our listeners a little bit about that.
You don't hear much about the Andromeda tale. I
Right.
think everybody hears about Perseus going and slaying Medusa,
Mm-hmm.
but what happened after that?
Mm-hmm.
On his way home, he came across Andromeda chained up to a rock by the side of the ocean. The city where she lived had been terrorized by a sea monster, and the king decided that he would sacrifice her to save the town. So Perseus, of course, unchains Andromeda, slays the sea monster, and carries Andromeda off to, I believe, to be his bride.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
I took some liberties in my 100-word retelling. There is no Perseus. There never was. And I added a little bit of Stockholm syndrome just to make Andromeda a little deeper of a character and not just a helpless victim, but almost a willing participant. So,
Right. The bride, the virgin sacrifice. So many virgin sacrifices of women in history and mythology.
It's true. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I actually looked that up because I couldn't remember it. I remember Perseus, I remembered Medusa. I could not remember what happened to Andromeda. So, yeah, mythology, talk about the wealth of material that you can take from. And
Oh, it's
s-
huge.
yeah.
When I was in high school, a required English class, I didn't really know I was going to be a writer yet. And mythology, that looks interesting. So I took that class, and Edith Hamilton was the textbook that we
Of
read.
course,
And
yep.
right, yeah. This story came about last fall. Our critique group, Specfic writers, uh, a few of us branched off to try writing travels, and we were given a prompt, and the prompt was horror on the beach. And I had already been toying in my head with the idea of retelling the Andromeda myth. I just didn't know how I was going to do that. And when that prompt landed in our critique group, I knew exactly what I was going to write, and it came together very quickly.
Horror on the beach. Oh my gosh. Listeners out
It
there, what would you do with that prompt? Horror on the beach. Oh my gosh,
horror
you
on the
could go
beach.
so many
It it
places, right?
it almost sounds like a drink you might get in a bar.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Paul, you've written this book about something that I will never do,
Rubik's Cube, yes.
Rubik's Cube. Do you have other challenges that you would like to write about as well when it comes to gaming, or are there other resources out there for blind people to puzzle?
I'll give you a resource related to cubes, and then I'll tell you where some of my other short stories have been coming out and might be appearing soon.
Okay.
The Rubik's Cube book has a companion website that I create and maintain, and it's called tactilecuber.com. TACTILECUBER.com. And that has some advanced strategies for solving the cube that are not covered in my book. In addition, it also has some algorithms and solutions for related puzzles. There is a variant of the Rubik's Cube that is simpler. Instead of 3 by 3 by 3, it's 2 by 2 by 2. I have a solution for that. There's a puzzle called a Rubik's Snake, which is 24 connected prisms that you can twist into various shapes, and I give some instructions for that. And there's a pyramid shaped puzzle, Pyraminx, and I have a solution for that on that webpage too. Um, but like I say, the cube is now in the past, and I'm more about my science fiction. So my most recently published work was from Farthest Star Publishing, a anthology called Acid and Ultraviolence, and that contains my Weird West short story, The Widow and the Rain. A lonely cowboy crosses a desert to exact vengeance on the man who murdered his father. And it's Weird West, so it has an interesting speculative element, and I'll just let your readers buy that book and read it and find out what it's got.
Okay. All right.
Then I
That
have
sounds wonderful. Yeah.
can I tell you
Okay.
two more stories coming up for
Please,
publication?
please tell me whatever you want to tell me.
Great, great. I also wrote a speculative hard-boiled detective story called Malone's World. And
Malone.
that
That's my mother's maiden name. Malone.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I
Malone's
didn't do
World.
that intentionally, Laurel.
Yes, you did.
So, Splinter Press, based in Spanish Fork, Utah, is putting out an anthology called Earth-ish Tales from the Splinterverse, and Malone's World is going to be published there. Gist of the story is that a hard-boiled detective follows a murder beyond the edge of reality. And then a third story I wanted to tell you about is I've had a story accepted for the upcoming RMFW anthology, so I'm expecting that to be published later this year. That
Excellent.
story is called What We Carry Back. And the theme
Okay.
for their anthology was that they wanted true stories, or rather fiction based on true events. And what we carry back is the story of a firefighter and his experience surviving the Big Thompson Canyon flood of 1976.
Okay. All right. I I did half of a story for the upcoming anthology and then I didn't finish it. So
Okay. Yep.
I might have to finish that someday and do something with it. Um, Paul, this has been amazing. Oh, wait, how is your cat doing with drum lessons?
I need to update my biography,
Oh
don't I?
no. Oh
Oh.
no.
Yeah,
You
last April we lost my cat. 17
oh.
years
Oh my
of
goodness.
of daily drum lessons
Oh.
and she never got past picking up a drumstick. It's very
Oh.
we
Oh.
we will dearly miss the Nipper. She was my favorite pet for a large chunk of my life. Yeah.
Oh, the nipper. Do you
Yep.
have a new cat or no?
We do not. We're
No.
currently petless, and the house is much cleaner, but our laps are not as warm. So,
Oh, well,
yeah.
you know what? There's time, right? What are you going
Yep.
to do now? What are you going to do tomorrow? There's time to get a kitten and start early with the drumming lessons because, I think that would be fun. And then you could write a book about how to train your cat how to play the drums. So,
We're going to do a little bit of traveling, and maybe when the traveling's over, we'll see what happens. I'm
okay.
going to go to the League of Utah Writers Quills Conference in Salt Lake City in August, as well as the RMFW Gold Conference in October and at the Aurora Denver Conference Center. Um, and what are we doing in December? Something else lined up. After that, maybe we'll think about a cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I am sad that I will be missing the RM Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference this year. We'll be traveling that weekend, so
Oh, too
I'll miss
bad.
seeing you there. But
I'll miss seeing you there too.
yeah, well, we'll have to get together another time and come down to Salida, and we'll maybe we should do like a weekend here at my house, and I'll have Linda come over too. I'll have people who want to do short fiction, and we'll just do a weekend workshop.
You can count me in on that. My wife said she's always up for a trip to Salida, and
Yeah?
Linda invited us down there, and we've never taken her up on it. So I'm sure we
Hmm.
can all get together. It'll be great.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Listeners out there, the book, Solve It, and this is specifically for blind readers, but for blind people wanting to solve a Rubik's Cube. The author, Paul Martz, and he's got lots of other short works in lots of other places. I will have links below. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners, Paul?
Hmm. Storytelling is such an important tradition. We have really no idea how long we've been telling stories, but I'm guessing it's been around since human language, since the birth of human language. And it might be one of those things that's as innately human as recognizing a face or even sharing a kiss. So, yeah, storytelling. We love to use our imaginations to go places we've never gone and to go to other times. And we love the storytellers who take us there.
Yeah.
So if one of my stories makes one reader feel like they've visited someplace they've never been, then I'm proud to be part of that tradition.
Amen. I love it. Listeners out there, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and leave us a comment. Maybe ask Paul some questions and I'll let him know what the questions are and maybe he'll give you some answers. And Paul, thank you for everything that you're doing. I am so impressed by you and inspired by you. And I look forward to seeing you again and keep being awesome, okay?
Laurel, thanks for running this podcast and thanks for having me as a guest.
You're absolutely welcome. I will catch up with you soon. You take care.
Bye.